I will kill you!
He doesn't believe you.
You hear me? I will beat you within an inch of your life.
Oh no, Paul has begun stripping. Here's the pole. Ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-da-da-dum. Dun, 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 da-da-da-da, bum, bum, bum.
Well, what are we going to babble about today?
We should probably talk about something writing related.
We probably should. Probably.
I discovered that just like every other book I write,
Oh, God. Here
this
we go.
one is going to run longer by at least a couple of chapters. I can never, even when I'm kind of outlining what's going to happen, it always seems like I overestimate how quickly it's going to come to a close.
Listeners, I want you right fucking now to go back 5 years in this show. Go back 5 years in this show and find all the spots where Terry's giving me shit for writing books that are over 82K. I want you to go back and find that episode, send him hate mail with the episode included, because I told him that wasn't going to last like that forever. And here we are.
As a point of fact, even when I was aiming for shorter lengths, say I was aiming for 80,000 words, I'd still go over. So
Yeah,
it's
but
not
now
really it's not because of how long the book is. It's because I can never estimate where the thing is going to end.
There's going over, and then there's going over. And then there's basically, oh, we're only halfway up the mountain. We need more mountain. It's two different things. I'm sorry, I'm giving you shit. Okay, fine. So now this shouldn't shock you with the next book. It shouldn't have shocked you with this book.
It really doesn't shock me. It's just that I thought I had a decent idea of the final events of the last couple of chapters, and I realized I didn't have enough runway to actually bring it to a close without abruptly running into something at the end of the runway.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just needs to have, the ending needs to have enough space to breathe, to go ahead and have it feel like I'm at about 12,000 words from my 100,000 word target for this. But I can already see that I need at least 2 extra chapters, even though the chapters are getting shorter because for whatever reason, when the action gets going, the chapters for me end up shortening down.
Yep.
So it's probably only going to be about 5,000 words over to make all of the things happen. But even though I knew where I was ending this 20,000 words ago, I still didn't quite hit the mark, and I never do. I don't usually come up short. I usually end up going long.
Yeah. I get that. I get that completely. I spent a lot of time this week working on Oceania, getting all the graphics and all the crap done so I could put it up on YouTube. And that's part of what derailed me this week. I spent probably 36 hours, 40 hours on, well, not that many, but basically a day and a half of work time, so to speak, working on getting the graphics together. I had to buy stock photo and putting everything together and getting all that up, and then basically making the YouTube trailer, the YouTube intro, the YouTube outro, the podcast intro, podcast outro, get all that shit together, burned off, put everything where everything has to go. And that basically took 2 days. The good news is I'm done with that for 3 weeks. I don't have to do it again. Actually, I don't have to do it again for the next story either, which is awesome. Because I've already got all the shit in place. So the next story I podcast, I'll be able to just basically cookie cut it the way that I've done this.
You should have asked, Donna to use one of her credits for you. The woman has a problem when it comes to credits for stock images. Every time they come up for sale, she buys another pile of them.
Oh, fuck. Well, yeah, next time I need all that stuff. But typically, I don't do any of the artwork because I suck at it.
Make a guess at how many credits she has sitting.
Probably as many audiobooks as you have.
Not that. I'm talking credits for licensing stock images.
I don't know, 1,000?
4,000.
Holy shit. Okay, yeah, I'm raiding your stash next time. Fuck you guys. Ooh, ooh, I have videos y'all could you could get me. I have videos y'all could get me.
Well, these are at deposit photos. I don't know if they do videos. Do they do videos? I have no idea.
I have no idea. I'd have to go look at deposit video. iStock Photo had 3 different videos I wanted that are kind of in the series. The cover for the Suits anthology I sent you. So there's like a whole group of those with that suit in different poses, but they have one where the guy in the suit is walking down a hallway, and it's all brightly lit and things are kind of going on in the background, and you could basically just loop that fucker all day long. And it's just really cool looking. There's a couple of them be really nice to include in YouTube, but you don't have to. It's just I was looking at those going, I can't justify this.
How much does licensing something like that cost?
I think it was only like 60 bucks, or maybe it was
Hmm.
$120. I
Yeah,
can't
I'm sure the
remember.
credits that she has, they're only for images, so that wouldn't do a whole lot of good.
Yeah, probably not. Still, um, there's all these things I looked at while I was making the stuff for Suits, and I made the mistake once again going up to one of the 3D model stores, which is just as bad as iStock Photo or Deposit Photo. You can get in the same trouble basically, and there's so much shit I could do. I'm like, I can make a movie. I could make a 3D movie if I had patience, firepower, and some help with most of this stuff and learn animation rigging. I would never write again because I'd be spending all my time on that bullshit.
Well,
But
some people, I imagine that if you were doing something on Patreon and creating stuff like that, that you'd get enough patrons to support yourself doing it.
it's possible. One of the things I'd really love to do is put a game script together and work with some people to basically put the basic narrative of the storyline into 3D, or even basically a basic movie like The Black with just the major scenes in it, because that kind of storyboard will be fantastic to show people, especially if they're in the entertainment biz, and quickly give them your elevator pitch in 45 seconds. Boom, watch this video. That's it. But it could also lead to really, really cool stuff, like you actually making the real movie with digital assets, or getting enough people involved that they end up making the movie with independent everything. So I was thinking about today, how do I make a script like that open source?
There's a
That'd be really,
guy that
really fun.
does
Maps.
maps, and he creates them not just standalones, but also as part of virtual tabletops that he makes on Patreon 16 or $17,000 a month doing that stuff. It's astonishing. I wish I had that kind of talent. I do not. Instead, I write books.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. In a perfect world, I would have, excuse me, Brian from VAC is doing the soundtrack. I'd have I'd find myself a really badass animator, and we pay for 3D stock art and modify it as much as necessary. I already know the kind of photos that I would use, or the kind of gear I would use to make hallways and all this other kind of stuff. You basically make a goddamn game out of Derelict, at least from when they enter Mira. That's the goddamn video game unto itself, a very Dead Space video game. And just basically putting the narrative script together, then somebody else can come along and put all the gameplay shit in there. It'd be an interesting experiment. But if you got 4 or 5 people who knew what they were doing to collaborate on something like that, I bet they could come up with something pretty fucking badass. That'd be cool. And then maybe community people will come in and go, I want to create a model for this. And then you replace the stock art with whatever they've got.
Yeah.
Ah,
A
dreams,
lot of
dreams,
games have
dreams.
hacks where you change the character around so they're wearing different clothes.
Oh, GTA 5. Okay, so back in the days of Quake, long fucking time ago. This would have been 96, 97, I think. There was a mod for Quake. It was when we were playing Loki's Minions, which was a mod. It's capture the flag with um, grappling hooks and all sorts of other shit. You can install the Beavis and Butthead wave pack.
Wow.
Oh, it was bad. Okay, so they would constantly talk, and everybody in the game could hear you. It was proximity. They could hear you by basically what Beavis or Butthead was saying. 'Cause they never shut up. And then when you use certain weapons, like you got the quad damage every time you did something, Butthead or Beavis would start screaming. It was just absolutely hilarious. And
Have one of them go, badass.
that you basically grab a piece of armor and Butthead or Beavis goes, "TP for my bedhole," and just keeps going on. You get the invincibility, and comes the Great Cornholio. It was absolutely hilarious because you'd just be sitting there and you've got the flag, and then suddenly you'd hear Beavis and Butthead in the background going, "Oh yeah, I'm not going that way." You'd stick around. So all of us turned it on, and it was bedlam. It was absolute bedlam. We couldn't hear anything. It was great. But yeah, like GTA 5, they change out characters. I've seen Simpsons characters and all sorts of comic book shit. People have their avatars. There's just no end to what you can do.
That's
Crazy.
awesome.
Yeah, and now we're gonna have this meta bullshit, which is just basically Second Life Part 2. I don't understand exactly how it's gonna be any better than Second Life is, but that's just my opinion.
Maybe it'll all be like the virtual reality in Ready Player One.
No, it won't. It won't. Because the people in Ready Player One weren't making enough off of advertising, as I remember.
That's what the bad guys wanted to fix.
That's what the bad guys wanted to fix. Of course, in this case, the bad guys built the platform, and that's exactly what the platform was built to do: is sell you shit. So big shock there. Be that as it may,
So as younger writers, I would have had difficulty aiming for a target length. As a pantser, it's particularly difficult to figure how long you're going to make something. Say, I need to write 100,000 word novel. That's challenging. That's intimidating if you don't understand your own process. If we were to give advice to someone that hasn't done that kind of thing before, what would your advice be?
who the fuck cares?
What? I am officially banning you from this conversation. Where's my mute button? No, I mean this is a real subject. Sometimes you
No, I
get together with
understand. It's
somebody,
a
you're
real
writing it, and
subject.
they say, I want a book of X length.
Mm,
How would somebody go about doing that?
I would say it's a bad idea. But okay, if you really wanted to do that, you would plot out the whole book. Let me explain what I mean by that. And let me explain what I'm doing with Oceania. Oceania right now, and I'm getting really good at this, is the chapters are, with the one exception, the chapters are almost religiously between 2,200 and 2,600 words, almost religiously. The reason is it comes into about 12 to 13 minutes of audio, somewhere in there. So I look at a chapter and it's like, okay, I have to get the following points across that I need to get things moving. After that, everything's free game. And if I end that chapter and I run out of space, I'll just transition, take it to another chapter. That's perfectly fine with me. So, based on that, that's 50 chapters to get to 100 grand. Do you have a plot that will support that from beginning to end in your head when you start writing? Chances are no. Even if you're an experienced plotter, I don't know if that's how it works. Y'all will have to tell us because neither one of us is that person. But I know that based on also when I look at books now like Oceania, I know I've got 4 major settings I want to deal with. And so based on the first one, how long that takes, it may tell me exactly how long the rest of this is. And if I have 4 of them, I spend 12 to 15,000 words on each. You can see that's a hell of a lot of book. It gets big quick, really quick. And when you start cutting your scenes up like that, then or the plot up like that, then you have I think a better idea where you want to go. Just figure out exactly what those big scenes are. The little shit, who cares? If you're just covering what you need to get covered, who cares how big those actual sections are? As long as you get those 3 or 4 points across that you want to get across, the major story beats. That's what I would focus on if you're trying to hit a length.
That's good advice coming from an outliner. And I know you're not a strict outliner, but that's
No,
definitely not a pantser sort of thing to say. I'm gonna say that.
no,
I'm gonna say that up front. That is not a
no.
pantser piece of advice.
But
So
but that's not entirely true, Terry. We talked about this. When you start writing, sometimes you have an idea of where your goal is. You have no fucking clue how you're going to get there, right? You still know that you know where the end is in theory, and
in
everything
theory,
may change as you go along, but you still have an idea since you know where you want to get, you have an overall idea immediately of the kinds of things that need to happen to get there. I would think. Major beats, not details.
yes, but no. And I'm
You
gonna
know,
say
you
that
know, here's the deal. You just have to be a fucking snowflake. You can't agree with anything. I'm special. I'm unique. Fuck you.
I don't agree with that at all.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It was really funny. When I started writing the novel that I'm just wrapping up, I thought I knew what the ending was going to be. By the time I hit 20,000 words, I knew that was not only unlikely, it was impossible.
Right.
And that happens more often than not as I'm writing these books. And as a pantser who doesn't outline where I'm going ahead of time, basically, you remember that Christmas song, just put one foot in front of the other and soon you're walking out the door? That's my writing style. I put one foot in front of the other and I write the scene that flows from what I'm currently writing after that. Whatever ideas I have, ooh, this would be cool. We could do this thing. We can do this thing. Oh, that's good for the story right here. I'm always focused on the here and now in the story when I'm adding the cool things. And sometimes I'll think of something that's going to be perhaps impactful for later on, and I'll make a note of it and start trying to feed in bits and pieces of that as I go. But the only way that I can keep track of length is I've got a spreadsheet that every chapter I enter in how many words I've used, and it keeps an average length of the chapter for the entire writing. And I know for a fact that my average length is north of 2,500 words. Right now in this current novel, it's 2,800 words average per chapter. So I have a general idea of how many chapters I need to have to hit the end. And when I hit the 50% mark, I have to say, okay, it's time to start curtailing all the cool things and actually focus on where this is going so I can
What
narrow down the
what is the scene
possibilities.
supposed to accomplish? And where's my out?
I have to start looking for the exit. And the timing on getting the right number of words in a book, for example, when I'm writing the co-authored novels, the the books going forward have a target of 100,000 words. I've never put a target on my own novels before. They ended where they do. So this is a new experience for me aiming for something. The first book in it, I think I had a range of between 110 and 130,000 words. I had a pretty big target zone, and that was easy to hit. Aiming for exactly 100,000 words is a little bit more challenging, but I'm going to end up just a little bit over and not so far off, so it'll be fine.
I think that's usually at this point a range. I mean, it's like, yeah, we want it when they say 100,000, it's like, yeah, we want it between 95 and 110. There's some wiggle room. Nobody's going
Yeah,
to tell
and
you
I'm
they
sure
want
that's
it
exactly
exactly
what it is.
100K. They want you to
I,
shoot
I'm
for
sure
that.
that's exactly what it is, and I would rather go a little long than go a little short because these books
Oh.
also have the reason that is these books also have audio going with them, and they're paying attention to the audio length. Apparently, some people that buy audio
Ah.
care about being things that are too short. They don't like things that are
Yes.
too short.
We want to spend our Audible credit on something that's at least 8 hours long. If it's not at least 8 hours long, who cares?
Well, right now, I think whatever the thing is, 9,000 words per hour, something along those lines, pretty close to that.
It's close.
So 100,000 words, you're still looking at 12 hours of audio,
Yes.
roughly. So it
Yes.
should be absolutely fine falling just a teeny bit short of that. Personally, I suspect if you're anything like me, when I look at the length of an audio, pretty much, yeah, 8 hours, that's
Yeah.
good. I like good. If it's more than 10, even better. Then I get to Brandon Sanderson and look at 45, 50, and I go, who really wants to devote the rest of their life listening to this book?
Well, thank you for fucking over all my income for derelict, you prick.
That's different than buying a box set of multiple books. I'm talking a book. That's okay. I could talk trash about Brandon Sanderson because he's way more successful than I am, and he doesn't care what I think.
Yeah, that's
And I don't
punching
really
up.
have anything against him anyway. He's just he's an easy target. He took some awards from us, so we're gonna pretend like he's our enemy, even though he doesn't know who we are.
We have respect for him. We just loathe
That's
him.
right.
Loathe him. Loathe him.
It's that kind of thing. Yeah, we'll run with that.
Well, it's great respect. We loathe him because we're just dying in a sea of jealousy. We're not too little to admit that.
That's
We'll
true,
perfectly admit that. That's right.
and I think he would appreciate that
I think he
if
would. I think
if
he
he
would.
knew who we were.
If he knew who we were and gave a shit, I think he would find that pretty funny. Anyway, that one notwithstanding, there is a target with audiobooks. You are absolutely correct. There is a target with pages and even ebooks, I think. Nobody wants to spend $3.99 on a book that's only 15, 20,000 words.
Truth. But how many people really know that before they buy it? Do you scan down and look at the length of an ebook?
I do.
I do sometimes, but I don't always, because there's an expectation with buying a book in a series that it's going to be some length, some X
Yes.
length.
Yes. A minimum length. Where was I before I got attacked by cat?
You were busy shutting down everything there. Let's see, what were you talking about? I honestly don't remember anymore. It's been, my brain has
It's
been
been 5 minutes.
cleansed for the last 5 minutes with something else. What were we talking about? We were talking about lengths of writing stuff,
Yeah.
but I don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah. We just saw this question on DRS not too long ago on Discord or something about length. And Terry and I both have the same answer almost always, which is a chapter is as long as it needs to be. The story is as long as it needs to be. You shouldn't be shoving stuff in there. However, there are times where some of those rules have to be bent a little bit.
If your novel is going out of control and you discover that it's going to be 30,000 words longer than you expected because you haven't controlled the amount of subplots you've got there, you may need to prune one.
You may be Terry
two.
Mixon and you might need an intervention.
Yeah, well, luckily I haven't had my stories go so berserk that I had to trim down the plot lines. I've got enough experience now as a writer that I can go ahead and roughly control where things end. If I'm going to end the story within 5 or 10,000 words, one way or the other of where I was aiming at, I'm good with that. So I don't worry about it beyond that. Like the 100,000 word thing, I'm not going to submit 90,000 words, but I will 95 to 105, 110, something like that. Just like you said, perfectly happy to submit that work.
And I think most publishers, in fact, at Balticon, I was on a panel with all sci-fi publishers and magazine editors. And they were talking about the fact that the digital age was awesome because if a lot of writers from the golden age of sci-fi actually lived in this age, their books would probably be 40% shorter and nobody would know the difference. And that was because to do print runs and everything else, they needed the books to be at least a certain size to get on all the runs and everything else. So they tried to basically dictate, thou shalt write, between 45 and 60,000 words, no more, no less kind of deal. So you were either padding or cutting, padding or cutting, padding or cutting to make whatever the, whatever length it was that they needed to do. But I mean, that was the nature of the beast back then. For those for the pulp print runs anyway. I don't know about the big print runs, the big publishers, but for the pulp stuff, definitely.
So that cup that you're holding is wirelessly connected. What does it tell you?
Nothing. Well, it has an LED that tells me right now it's heating.
Oh, so it's a self-heating sort of thing. Okay.
Yeah, it's got its own heating element.
All right. That'll keep the coffee warm.
Yeah, at 144 degrees as I have it set right now.
Don't spill that in your ass.
Not in your crotch. Of course, now I'm standing up. It's a lot less likely for me to spill things on my crotch. It is much more likely for me to spill them on my feet. I don't know which is worse in a certain deal. Now, as an aside, since we've already gone off the rails, there is a Durex commercial. You know who Durex is?
Sounds vaguely familiar.
They make condoms.
Okay.
Okay, so I saw one of their commercials because somebody said, quit it. And somebody retweeted it and said, quit it. They had a pickle. They put the pickle in the condom. And then they put the pickle into a slicer. So they made the first slice. And it made it look like the head of a penis until they pulled on it and the head of the penis came off the part that had been chopped. But the thing was, the condom remained intact. Then they said, once they proved that, they kept running the pickle through the slicer, and it was just, it was fucking horrific. I clutched my cojones and said, no,
it's the snapper.
Hold on, this may leave a mark. It's like, okay, if you want a homegrown circumcision, I guess that'll work.
Reminds me of a horror story that Morgan Electra wrote that I read that had a female vampire with the fangs in the Down Yonder.
Yeah, vagina dentata. Yeah.
Wonder if that would stand up to that.
Probably
How annoying
not.
for the vampire that would be. Excuse me? Excuse me? Says the vampire.
I have questions that I don't want answers to.
You'll have to ask them of Morgan Electra.
He's
the one that can answer your question.
As I said, I have questions I don't really want answers to. It's better.
Morgan, if you're listening to this, send him all the answers.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So were you asking that question for you?
Which question?
About how to hit the target.
I was asking it for younger writers. I don't have a concern about hitting it for myself. But I remember that I didn't have this problem except in very general ways when I was a younger writer, and I wouldn't have had the tools to deal with the kind of things that I could do to affect the length of a novel. So I wouldn't know that it's the number of subplots that I've got going that I need to keep an eye on to make sure they don't spin wildly out of control, so that they just keep going and going and going. And I can't bring the novel to a conclusion until I finish them. That would have been something of a challenge for a younger me.
Okay, I get that. When I first started out, I think it was really hard for me to get a story over 2,500, 3,000 words. In fact, most of the short stories I wrote in college were under 3,500, with I think 2 exceptions. Those short pieces of fiction, pieces of very short fiction, kind of allows you to really hone storytelling skills because you have very little time, very little space to get shit done. It has to be focused on, this is what you do. This is this one thing that's going to happen in this story. And that's it. If you try and slam too many things in there, if you're not going to be able to address them all, it's not a complete story. If you have too few complications that are too easily solved, it's not a good story. There has to be that balance there. But when we're talking about a really a short piece of short fiction, you really need to focus on exactly what the plot is and how long
I
it
know that
goes.
Empire of Bones was 72,000 words when I wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
My current novel length, when I'm not aiming for something in particular, ends up being above 90,000. So either I've gotten wordy or I've gotten better at inserting more things going on into the pot, keep things stirred up a little longer.
That may be. I think everybody comes to it their own way. I don't think Philip K. Dick ever wrote a book longer than 55,000 words. I could be wrong.
Look at the time frame he was in, though. That was actually more normal for that time.
Yeah, but I would say today with ebooks, depending on how you're pricing it and what you're selling it, that's actually a pretty damn good length if you can churn those puppies out. Because it's like weekend reading. You know, you can start the story on a Friday and easily finish it by Sunday night. It's not too bad of a deal if it's focused. I kind of like that, actually. I have discovered that, you know, depending on what the market's doing or who you talk to, it's like horror books are better if they're shorter. You know, fantasy has to be a certain length, especially epic fantasy has to be a certain length, or, you know, the audiences will rebel over that. Sci-fi folks seem to be a little more flexible. Seem to be. I don't
It
know
may
about
also
really
have to do with when you grew up with a writer, as a reader anyway.
Yeah,
when I was a
it does.
kid, I read a bunch of stuff that I got from secondhand stores. So a lot of the fiction that I consumed was 40, 50,000 word novels. Not
Right.
very long at all.
No.
The only ones that were really longer back then were the fantasy, and those ended up being somewhat thicker. Then they became doorstops in the 80s and 90s, and they have not retreated from the doorstop status.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out at what point and why did the doorstop suddenly become the norm? Was it because everybody suddenly wanted to be Tolkien?
I remember reading, I used to have a yearly ritual where I would read all 3 books of The Lord of the Rings, check them out from the library and take them home in the hardbacks. And they were pretty thick hardbacks. And so reading all 3 of those in sequence was a pretty serious undertaking.
Right. I don't know, man. And then of course you have to deal with the shortening attention spans. It's like now they want to binge everything, right? So how do you make your writing bingeable? How do you write fast enough for it to become bingeable? Write shorter books.
So I wonder when the Lord of the Rings novels will end up being in the public domain and people start writing their own spin-off stories set in Middle Earth.
You mean outside the estate?
Yeah, outside the estate.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know that a lot of that had to be litigated out for
the
Sherlock
films.
Holmes. It's
Oh
almost
yeah, for Holmes definitely.
It's almost completely in the public domain at this point. There's still a couple of short stories that are not. I think 3 or 4 that are not yet in the public domain.
But the character himself is.
The character himself is. There's a couple of events. You can't talk about Watson's wife. That is verboten. It is covered by something under copyright. But there's still a lot of things that you can do.
Interesting. Okay. Fair enough.
But it probably is not so far away that Middle Earth drops into the public domain and you can start writing stuff like that if you don't want to be sued by the estate because they're going to try to defend it forever in the courts.
So basically after that, everybody is racing against the clock to make fanfic. Or not even fanfic. Not even fanfic at that point, because you can basically steal everything and do whatever the hell you want with it.
Want to write the story of Aragorn as a young ranger? Rock yourself on when it's in the public domain. You can.
Yeah.
Now I better look and see.
I guess that's what I'm saying. The universe will be wide open at that point, as will the characters. Yeah, I imagine people will go kind of crazy with that. It'd be nice if somebody... Well, never mind. Forget it. I had a crazy idea, community idea, but never mind. Well, it would be cool if there was a committee who basically kind of oversaw that mess.
The Hobbit was published in 37. Its copyright ends in 2032. Fellowship of the Rings will go into the public domain in 2050. So we still got a long way before those books come into the public domain.
But everything from The Hobbit is going to hit not too long from now.
Yeah. 10 years from now, you can start writing in the world of Middle-earth as long as it does not impinge upon things that are covered in the Lord of the Rings books. Those are still under copyright. Want to tell the story of Numenor? Too bad for you.
You'll have to wait.
God knows it. Amazon might sue you then because they're about to do a TV series that I would wager is going to be dealing with the events of Numenor, among other things.
Excuse me.
Are you tired? Is you sleepy?
I'm always tired. Although Luna actually allowed me to get 5 hours of sleep, so that was kind of a good thing this week. Screamer.
She says, I was asleep downstairs, but I woke up now. I went up here.
Mm-hmm.
She's
Shadow,
just a bug.
go back to napping, please.
She says, I might go back to napping.
I'm talking to my putty. Hoping he goes back to napping. Because he got up. It's never a good thing.
It's all very interesting. Personally, one of the very first sets of stories that I read were the Skylark of Space series by Doc Smith. And those are older than Lord of the Rings stuff. They were written in the 1920s. And the very first publication of them from, I guess it was Amazing Magazine, whatever magazine it was originally put through, is already in the public domain. But the books, they were republished later, and so their copyright is different. So changed events that are in the later books, in the redone books, not available. That's always a challenge when you run a write in a public domain universe that isn't truly all in the public domain. You've got to be very careful of the events you include, because some of them, some very subtle things, can actually be copyright violations.
Yeah, I'll stay away from that. Thanks. That's why it's better to, if you want to do that stuff, to try and get in with the folks who are doing it, the sanctioned versions or whatever else of the books.
They want lots of money.
Of course,
money.
Of course they do. Of course they do. But unless they hire you to write it, in which case you will get that money, or some of that money.
Yeah, like the Doyle estate, all they did was license the use of it and then bring the legal hammer down on anybody that tried to cut into their stuff, whether they had the right to or not.
That's one way to handle it.
That's the way a lot of corporations and things handle it. Sue first, even if you're wrong.
Even if you're wrong, sue first. Must protect. If you don't protect every single little thing, then the court can come back and say, well, you didn't protect it, so you lose it. So that's why, one of the reasons why they're...
Well, in this case, it was to deter people from even trying to use it. Even though it's in the public domain, if somebody's threatening a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against you, if you dare to do anything with it, then not many people are going to take that chance.
Yeah, you're less likely to say...
Intimidate them.
Ooh, I want to take this risk. Although getting sued by Disney and ending up on the front page of Slashdot, that's always a good time. That's got to be a good time.
Who's that happened to?
No one that I know of. That was always my grand plan if they came after me for the street, was to make sure that there were certain minions in place to basically take care of making sure every news outlet and geekdom got hold of the story. So
I shouldn't mail them my copy of The Street?
No, I wouldn't do that. That'd be bad. That'd be bad. That'd be very bad. The rights thing is a mess. It just gets to be more and more of a mess. There are some things I like. I would love if they reboot. Well, they're rebooting the Dead Space universe. If they reboot the canon in any way, I would love to write books for that. That would be something that'd be a whole lot of fun to get in there and write some more stories in that universe, because that universe has just got so many opportunities for crazy.
Well, you know that some of the stuff for Mickey Mouse is coming into the public domain, so it's about time for Disney to go ahead and change the copyright laws to 5,000 years.
Yeah, and it doesn't surprise me that they do that. Actually, Alan Baxter pointed out that Winnie the Pooh and H.P. Lovecraft came into the public domain the same day. So
which is kind of frightening.
So he had a whole list of new 100-Acre Wood stories.
Just remember, you can't have Winnie in a red shirt. That's the Disney as an adaptation. Adding the red shirt because you can't have a naked bear.
Okay, so he's got to have a shirt on.
No, if you put a shirt on him, Disney will sue you. That part is still copywritten by Disney.
What if I have him wearing
That's their interpretation.
Well, what if I have him wearing a muumuu?
A muumuu? Is it red?
No?
Then I think you may be okay. But if you have a red shirt, you're in trouble.
Yeah, fuck you, Disney. So anyway, he had this long list of short story titles. I was like, he's like, somebody stopped me. I was like, why? You just came put together a short story collection. There's all the titles of short stories you need to write. And some of them really good, really, really good lampoons of both Winnie the Pooh and Lovecraft. They were awesome. They were awesome.
He's a very smart and funny guy.
Yes,
until he turns that humor on you, and then it's not so fun no more.
Uh-huh. Anyway, he's that was just pretty funny because I hadn't heard that. I didn't know about it, and then I was like, I started seeing those posts everywhere about it. I was like, holy shit, is that really true? I looked, yep, sure enough.
I knew about Pooh. I didn't know about Cthulhu, Lovecraft.
Yeah. So pretty much everything from Lovecraft is coming into public domain. That's going to lead to some very scary shit coming. Probably a lot of really bad fanfics about to hit the air. Maybe some really good stuff too. Maybe
it's always a mixed bag. You can never tell what you're going to get.
Oh yeah, it will be. But you know, the thing is with Lovecraft though, you don't have to steal anything from his. You just basically make it your own. There's no lore. It's just making that shit up as you go along, right? You've got worshipers worshiping something they don't even understand. You've got a god who's hiding in another dimension that's slowly peeking his way through into this one. And then you've got all these other associated beasties.
Some of them are named in the stories, so yes. It actually does matter if you use the name.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is the universe as it is easy to basically pick up and move and file off all the serial numbers and essentially have the same thing because it's so amorphous.
Oh yeah.
There's no structure to it. That's part of the point. Is it's cosmic horror because none of it makes any goddamn sense. That's part of why, everybody's left a gibbering idiot because reality's folding around them because they're peeking into that dimension or that dimension's peeking into them. So that's not real tough to take and move. It's not like you're reinventing Star Wars or reinventing Lord of the Rings. There's not much lore to steal. It's hardly any, really, that I'm aware of.
One of the things that is coming up that I think is going to be very interesting is there is the 30-some-odd year exclusion on copyright. I can't remember now what it is exactly. That after you wrote something, even if you gave away the rights to it, you can revoke those rights under the copyright law as it exists. And people have started doing that. And there has started to be, trouble with that kind of stuff.
Those contracts that they wrote that did that crap are bullshit anyway.
I'm not sure how that has anything to do with what I just said. I don't
Well,
get
what
it.
I'm saying is the reason why they're letting them to do that and that copyright restriction deal is in there is because of the rights crap that was going on. They basically just lock it up, and as long as it never went out of print, you never got your rights back.
The thing I'm talking about is actually in copyright law.
Mm-hmm.
There's a provision in the copyright law that says after 30 some odd years that you can revoke permission of anyone to use your stuff and take possession of it back, unless you did it as a strict right for hire, where you were an employee of the person that took it. Like, say, for example, Dean Wesley Smith, who wrote a bunch of Star Trek novels. He's already looking at how can I get those novels reverted to me, file off the Star Trek serial numbers, and republish them as my own. That's going to make somebody's head explode.
Probably. There are a lot of those stories you could do that too.
It was the aliens. The aliens lore was caught up in something about that. It's
still caught up in
the
it.
original script writer said, "Mine, give me back."
Alan Dean Foster, because they wouldn't pay him.
I think Terminator also went through something like that and is still going through something like that.
Yeah, I heard some mention of that, but I don't know any of the details. That's going to happen, yeah, more and more. And then, of course, Disney being the pricks. Y'all should just fucking boycott Disney. Stop watching all of their shit and stop enabling those pricks to fuck the rest of us.
They're going to own all media inside 20 years. They'll be like the Taco Bell of media. Everything you want to watch, it's on Disney. Because, that's all that anybody is Disney.
Fuck Disney. Anyway, I'd be very happy to see that mouse burned alive and never back on TV or film again.
You're sounding just like John Spartan. Way to go, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. See? Screamer agrees. Dude, please, come on. Being attacked by a cat here. That's the problem with some of those franchises, and then they wrote all the books for them or paid all those people to write the books for them. Yeah, that's going to be an issue when you've got like 100 different books for some series and then suddenly it comes out of copyright.
Well, that would be problematic if somebody, say, the original Gene Roddenberry copyrights for Star Trek go out of length. It's not going to stop the books you already have.
Right.
What it's going to do is meaning other people can then start writing in that universe and cause you big problems.
Paramount loses their complete and total monopoly on it.
Yeah, but that's a long, long way off. And by then, Disney will have extended copyright to 10,000 years. So it's not going to be a problem.
I'm sorry. Did I forget to say fuck Disney earlier? I wanted to make sure.
I don't really remember. Maybe you should say it again.
Oh, fuck Disney. So Stop enabling those fucking pieces of trash. Please. Please. How many Marvel masturbatory cinematic experiences do you really fucking need? Okay.
A few more.
I'm going to take off my grumpy old man hat. That's obviously not going to be a problem for indie folk. The issue of getting your rights back. But I guess any press that you go with, that's going to be something to watch. I know from my experience, I get the black back. Pretty much already got it back. I just extended it for reasons. But it's kind of shocking to think something you wrote that long ago is now going to be back in your hands. When you basically forked it over to somebody else to, watch over it and take care of it and promote it and market it and everything else. And now suddenly it's back in your hands. It's like, oh shit, what do I do? Now I have to do all the things they weren't doing and do all the things that I think should be done. And it puts you on a completely different path than coming out with a new book. It's a different process, different everything. What are you doing?
I'm looking to see. I think it's actually 35 years. And the thing is, just like everything, creative, music has been preceding us by about 10 years. So this has been going on in the music industry for about 10 years now, and they're still in turmoil about it.
Good. I love it when writers actually or creators start getting their maybe are able to get some money back from the clusterfuck that has become our civilization.
So yeah, 35 years. It's been that long since Terminator? I guess it has.
1984?
Mm.
The first one? So it came out like a year or two before Aliens did. Aliens, I think, was 86.
Let's see. Well, seeing the news article I'm looking at here, Die Hard and Terminator and Beetlejuice are all in the same boat.
Beetlejuice.
I want to see a Die Hard Beetlejuice crossover.
They never made a second one of that, right? It's just a cartoon that they made. They never made a sequel.
I think so.
God, another clusterfuck.
But
complete and total.
Yeah, it's apparently been 35 years since Terminator came out.
Wow.
So I guess that's 80s.
Yep.
Mid 80s, late 80s, something like that.
What's the matter? You can't do math?
No, I've never been able to do math. I'm the guy that failed college algebra twice before I passed it. It's true. That's a totally true statement.
Oh boy, so hopeless.
Math is literally not my strong suit.
It's nobody's strong suit except for mathematicians. Just gonna put it that way. Well, what else you got?
I don't know. I'm not sure that I can go anywhere after a Die Hard Beetlejuice crossover. I think we pretty much have covered all the things we need to cover.
Well, once you go that far, I think you pretty much won or lost the internet for the day. I don't know which it is. I don't know how you even determine whether or not that's a win or a loss. I have no idea.
I'm not sure you can really tell the difference.
I think there's
just
a loss on varying shades of losing is what I think is going on there. I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any.
I
good
totally
outcome.
want to see Bruce Willis with his head shrunk down while he's still talking. I think that would be awesome.
I think he would cease to exist. Oh my god! Holy shit! You heard it here first, folks. Although I imagine you probably wish you hadn't heard it. Fuck me. That's awful. You're just a terrible, terrible man. Thank you for putting that in my head. Now I'm going to send you the link to that tweet, the DRS tweet. I'm going to send that to you. Just so you can see. Man,
that's just rude.
Just how
block you for that. That's it. You're blocked.
Just how nasty that was. Just how cringe.
You do that, I'll send it to Donna and she'll paste it all over the internet.
That's fine.
While laughing maniacally the entire time.
Oh, I know. That's a bigger reason to share it than anything else. She will get torturous amounts of glee from it. Just so long as I don't have to see the memes and my name's not associated, I'm okay with it. I have to scuba dive.
Do you have to scuba dive or you want to scuba dive?
My characters are scuba diving.
So you want to experience it as well?
I am kind of via YouTube and trying to find books that have good descriptions of scuba diving in them.
So you're not actually going to take classes and go scuba diving?
I have no fucking money for classes. Who are you kidding? I've been snorkeling before though. Out there in the Keys and thus and such on the reef. So I do know what all that looks like. It's been a long time and trying to remember everything, but I never went scuba diving. So I don't know what the differences are, but I kind of have a cheat. But regardless, it was really, really difficult for me to get in there and actually write these underwater scenes, because I've never done it before. Never done it before. Well, it's just not entirely true, because there are a couple of underwater scenes in the Black, but they're basically just hanging out near the oil rig. There's no reefs. There's no animals that are flitting by them. There's no, stuff to describe what's in the sand, especially after tsunamis and earthquakes and crumbling infrastructure and blah, blah, blah. What are the kinds of things that are going to be buried in the sand? Where does the shore end? and trying to figure out all that kind of crap. It makes kind of a mess in your head, in my head anyway. And then if you're going down there to fight something or look for something, how do you do a search pattern underwater?
Grid.
How do you make sure all of your that you have cover, that everybody's looking in, and you have directions all covered so you can't be surprised from behind, get flanked? How do you do all
You
that when
watch old
it's
James Bond movies where they use spear guns to fight each other underwater.
excuse me. Well, it's just like in space, right? In space, if you're in space, you have a full a sphere of problem, right? You got an entire sphere to deal with. Underwater, you typically have a hemisphere. If you're on the ocean floor, you have a hemisphere of responsibility, of danger, or whatever you want to call it, of potential attacks. So they are very, very similar. What did you just do?
The military, when they're doing something like that, where they have people covering things, they slice the pie. Basically, you have a slice of certain degree that you're responsible for. That's your area.
Right. It's just, it gets more complex when you also have to look up.
Just ask Khan; he'll tell you.
Yeah, it's just ask Khan, and that's kind of my point. In space and in underwater, they kind of share the same problem, because you've added this new dimension that you normally don't have in regular gravity, which is worrying about somebody floating over top of you or attacking you from the surface or whatever else. It's just a different style of storytelling, and it's different different concerns, especially if you're dealing with quote unquote professionals who are used to dealing with danger. What are the kinds of ways that they would, how would they cover one another underwater? What are the things they're chiefly worried about? What are they going to be looking out for? What does the person on the surface need to look out for?
One of the things you need to make sure that you take into account with that kind of situation is, unless you're in the Caribbean and you're up close to the surface, you're going to have less light than you might expect. Go down just a little bit, and suddenly the light level drops off and you are in the dark.
Yeah, the PNG, I think they said the reef goes down 400 meters, one of the cliff walls, something like that. And technically, I think the deep midnight is 800 meters down, something like that, where sunlight no longer penetrates. So yeah,
it says here that that it's 1,000 meters below the surface, all the way down to the seafloor. You will have no darkness and total lack of light.
No darkness and total lack of light,
or no light and just total darkness.
right?
Photosynthesis cannot happen below 1,000 meters. No
Correct.
light.
Correct. At that point, everything is eating other life forms, or they're eating the what do they call it? The dandruff coming down from the ocean surface.
The detritus.
Detritus
of the once living.
Yes, which feed all the zooplankton down there at the very bottom. That notwithstanding, however, my point was that it introduces new complications I haven't had to deal with, and they can be a little scary, because it's like, how do I do this again? Is anybody going to buy this? Is anybody going to understand
Here's
this?
the thing. No matter what you write about, even if you are an expert in the field, then somebody is always going to find something that they disagree with. As long as you can write something that is relatively believable and not obviously wrong, you're going to get buy-in from virtually everyone. Yeah. Even if there's a substantial, there's an error of some kind. The readers are willing to give you credit for, I really tried to get this right, but I'm not an expert. So if you've got some, whatever deep sea zoologist that is familiar with all this, goes, oh no, that's not how things work at all. That's not the reviewer. That's not the person you're writing this book for.
I have never been to Papua New Guinea. I have never been south of the equator. I have never seen those reefs. What are you showing me? Oh, for crying out loud. As I was saying before Terry completely disrupted everything, I have never been to Papua New Guinea. I've never been south of the equator. I've never been to any parts of that ocean that's out there. I'm doing everything by what I can find on the internet to tell me what the fuck is going on in that area, which includes life forms, includes layouts. I found a GIS map that shows elevation. I found another one that allows you to zoom in and see exactly what the fauna is in that area, or the flora rather. I found ways to calculate what the elevation is going to look like after a certain amount of time. I did all those kinds of things, and that's all I can do. I had to take a few liberties with certain geography things and put buildings where they don't exist or never existed. But that's what I have to do for the story. And that's what I'm going to do for the story because it makes a better story, but it is not going to be accurate and representative of real world, which is fine. It's fucking fiction. It's got a goddamn oil monster in it. I think we threw reality out several books ago, like in the first one. So, and what I plan to do is basically put an author's note. I had to take certain liberties, but here are the things that are really going on in that area. It's really losing centimeters of ocean level every year, which means the ocean's rising a lot. They've had to evacuate a lot of people since 2003, and that's going to keep going on. And now New Ireland, New Britain are threatened. That's a lot of stuff that's really going on. And I talk about it in the book Oceania so far as if that shit's already happened.
So how long until I have beachfront property? That's what I want to know.
Oh, you mean here in Houston? I have no idea.
I'm sitting about 22 feet above sea level, so I need to know when I'm going to have beachfront property.
Wow. Only 22 feet?
That's what I seem to remember reading. Maybe a little bit more. I seem to remember it was in the 20 some odd foot range.
See, when the sea level rises an inch, you think that's not a big deal, but then you have to realize how much elevation that actually is.
Galveston's still there, so I think I'm all right for now.
For now. When Galveston starts disappearing.
Once Galveston has to be abandoned because it's underwater, then I'll be concerned.
I would think once it starts flooding because it's coming in, hasn't been completely abandoned yet, but when that starts happening, yeah, it's time to get the fuck out. It's time to GTFO.
I'm pretty sure at my age that I'm not going to have to worry about abandoning my house because of imminent flooding from the oceans, no matter how it turns out.
No, you're more likely to have to abandon the house because a hurricane comes through and destroys it.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's always
I'll have to move up on your side of the town,
We don't want
my wife and I have been talking about it. What do we do? Where would we move?
We don't want
we can
you
move
here.
to Wyoming. No, we're not going to move to Wyoming because they have winters. Screw that shit.
Yeah, there's kind of a problem with some of the places you want to go, which is, yeah, they're beautiful 6 months out of the year. There's the other 6 months, which is torturous hell for an old person. Yeah.
If I want to avoid the hurricanes being an issue, I could move to Bryan College Station and still have good medical care and be further away from, the coast.
Yeah, then you just have to worry about tornadoes and hail and the usual things.
The usual things.
Aggies.
Aggies are much more of a threat in Bryan College Station than either tornadoes or hail and hurricanes.
They're an existential threat. And before any Texas A&M people get offended, I went to Texas A&M. I was in the Corps of Cadets, believe it or not, or I didn't graduate from there, but I was.
I have a friend that graduated from A&M, and he's also of Polish descent, so he kept making Polish Aggie jokes, which is pretty damn hilarious when you get to it.
Oh, God. That's like the horrible mix of the worst possible things you can put together.
And yet he did.
Well, if you can't poke fun at yourself, who can you poke fun of?
But yeah, I'm figuring that if we ever move, it'll probably be to someplace like Bryan College Station because it's not so far away. It's not way up north, but it's further away from the coast. We should bring it to a close. Although I will mention that you were talking about scuba diving, and it brought to mind that I was thinking about going to one of these fun places that has one of those air machines you get into. And
I knew you were going to. I knew that's what you were going to bring.
I've actually been thinking about doing that.
It would be kind of cool.
Because my wife, wouldn't really tolerate me jumping out of an actual airplane.
God.
Fuzzy says, no, Dad, no holdings. No holdings. Not authorized.
Now he is pissed.
I just gotta go beat up the dog. I so mad.
Well, if you'd like to send us an email about what this goddamn episode is about, you can. Yeah, cats. You can send an email to show@deadrobotsociety.com. You can tweet me at Paul_E_Cooley. You can find Terry at the listeners of the Dead Robot Society Facebook group, where all the other crazy people hang out. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast. We have to thank our wonderful host, Pod Hoster, who makes all 14 bazillion episodes of the Dead Robot Society available for your ear holes. And if you'd like to support the show, you can find us at patreon.com/DRS podcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive content, mostly unexpurgated shows and other nonsense.
Well, you'll get all the copyright strikes that Paul is willing to drop on YouTube.
Right. Is that what we're going with now?
Yes.
That's what we're going with. Okay.
We're going to go with Paul. If you subscribe to Patreon, Paul will sing an aria for you.
I am not singing a fucking aria for anybody. I'm just saying that's not happening. And if you support us at the $10 level, you get your name read. And our $10 patrons are Summer Wilson, Tony L. Joy, Andrew Smallwood, Veronica Jaguar, Rick Shaw, Lisa Slack, Chris Winder, and Isabel Cushy. Thank you to all of our supporters who make this show possible. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, patrons.
And before we go, we have one more thing we have to do. Terry.
What could that be, Paul?
How do you get up in the morning? How do you get up, get out of bed, and get shit done?
Corpse coffee, my friend.
That's
right. That's how it happens.
That's right. God damn it. Terry and Paul are caffeine fiends. And fortunately, Corpse Coffee at corpsecoffee.com does a fantastic job of providing us with all the best corpses that have the caffeine. So go up to corpsecoffee.com, check out their boutique teas, list of coffees, which Terry and I just really love. I love the Bone Rattler personally. They're wonderful webcomic and help a small business keep going and get some damn good coffee while you're at it. So go up to corpsecoffee.com and get the dead in your cup.
Abracadabra for the win.
Abracadabra. Yeah, that's yours. Anyway, okay, so we are out of here. We will talk to y'all next week.
Bye-bye, patrons. Or bye-bye, show people.
Bye-bye, show people. Patrons will be with you in a second. Anyway, now Terry's had his senior moment. We'll move on. Bye.